Okay, as I mentioned in my intro, today we're tipping this on our head. So Clare Sullivan, who's the new CEO of MND Australia, had a good idea, and she said, Jane, how about I interview you? Well, really good idea. And I was just saying to Claire, it's funny how nervous I am. I shouldn't be nervous. I do this all the time. So I've got a bit of sun into my eyes. Sorry about that. So good morning, Claire. And I'm just going to hand to you. And I don't know what you're going to do to me, but go for it.
Well, let's see how we go. Jane, it's a great pleasure to be here. You're right, I've only been in the job for a few months, and in that time, I've learned so much about people with MND, about the terrible disease, about the opportunities for the organisation, and about the work you've been doing in building community, connecting people. And so, yes, I thought it would be a great opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. To hear a bit more about your story and the journey you went through with Robert. So yes, a great pleasure to be here, and I'm absolutely thrilled. I think we'll just dive straight in.
Yeah, hit me, baby.
I would love to know the love story. Love is what
Oh.
connects us all. How did you meet Robert? How did you fall in love? And tell me a bit about sort of life pre-MND.
So Robert and I actually met through work. He was an architect, and at that time I was working for a large company, Honeywell, and I was in the office admin type section. And Honeywell were doing a lot of building at that time, and he was the architect for them Australia-wide. So that's how we met. And then he was Sydney-based, I was Melbourne-based. And then I was promoted with my job, and I went up to Sydney. And there you go. Love blossomed. He brought to the marriage 3 children. So they were 2, 3, nearly 4, and 8. So we had an instant made family, which, I don't know, it's not easy, but we did it. And the children are Hugh, Louis, and Amelia. And we just jumped straight into family life, really. We looked after those kids and we looked after each other, and no marriage is perfect, and I'm not saying ours was, but we really liked each other. We were best friends and we loved each other a lot. And we'd gotten to that point in life that everyone aims for. So we'd educated the children. They were on their own paths, and we thought to ourselves, yippee, now we have the time to be alone and to travel and to, just do the things that we wanted to do in our life. But that didn't happen.
Yeah. So how did you know something was wrong?
Look, on reflection, Robert had been displaying symptoms for quite a few years. So he had trouble swallowing at times. He was choking. Just weird little things, but nothing actually ever went together. And then in 2019, we were in New Zealand with our family skiing, and he had a really big fall, and he cracked his back on a rock because he was on a double black run going at speed, because that's my husband.
Daredevil. Yep.
And he ended up crushing a vertebrae. But we went to the doctor on the mountain, and the doctor said, oh, no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Of course, he kept moving and moving and moving and made it worse. And then when we came back to Melbourne, we saw neurologist back dude, and he said it was radiculopathy, which is a damaged nerve. But Robert just kept getting worse and worse. So every night he'd walk the dogs, and he came home one night and he said, I just can't walk them anymore. It's too hard for me, which was totally out of character. And then every morning he would say to me, I can't do up my buttons. Can you please help me get dressed? So I would do that. But we kept thinking there is something more, there's something more. This can't just be radiculopathy. And we were seeing neurologists, and it was during COVID too, so that was quite difficult. So I thought at the end of the day, we saw 8 neurologists that year, and 6.5 of the 8 said it was radiculopathy. And then one day my daughter came over and she said, you know what, Dad's really lost a lot of weight. And I looked at him and I realized, oh God, he has two. His belt was done up on the latest. You know, when you're with someone every day, you don't, it's like your children growing. You don't realize they're growing and you look at them and go, holy moly. And we went to another neurologist whom I think was too scared to tell us that it was MND. And then finally, thank you, the Lord, we landed on Professor Dominic Rowe. And we went to Dom, and within 5 minutes, he confirmed with us that it was MND, which was, as he would say, shit on a stick.
Yeah.
But we also were happy that we finally had a prognosis. Sorry, that word?
Diagnosis.
Yeah, thanks. That's the word, a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder if the journey of the carer is as hard, if not harder. At this point, you'd seen the changes in your husband, the love of your life. You now get this diagnosis. Where were you at that point?
Well, because I'd been on Dr. Google, so I had an understanding of what was going to happen. I am a doer, so I jumped into action immediately. So
Busy.
Called the lawyer, called Pal Care, you know, called anybody that I could think that might be able to help us. Busy. So when I don't want to feel a feel, I just be really, 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 really busy.
Yeah.
And then it turns out when you're caring for someone with MND, you don't have 2 seconds to yourself in a day anyway. So that also was extremely busy. I was shocked. I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken for him. I was heartbroken for me. I was heartbroken for our marriage. I was heartbroken for our children.
No words clearly.
No, and despairing. Yeah.
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 Oh, Jane.
Mm.
So we know the average time from diagnosis to death is 27 months. For Robert, it was just 10.
Yeah.
Tell me about that journey for him, but also for you.
Yeah.
What is that journey? Yeah.
I think that it was 10 because we had such a delay in diagnosis. If we'd have been diagnosed earlier. But the silver lining to that not being diagnosed is that we kept doing what we wanted to do. So we still traveled, we still lived in, sorry, I've got this shining in my eye. We still lived in ignorance. So we just kept pushing on. Even though we knew he wasn't well, it wasn't going to stop us. So we were diagnosed properly in February of 2021, and he died in December of 2021. And Domro had said to us, my shortest patient was 3 months and my longest is 35 years. But we knew that he wasn't going to be the longest. And then Dom had us come to see him every 2 weeks. Now, that's not normal. People go every 3 months, every 6 months, or every 12 months. So when we're going in every 2 weeks, we realized that it was happening very rapidly as well. He began to lose use of his hands, of his arms, which was very frustrating for Robert because he was an architect, he was a designer, he painted, he drew the whole time he was drawing. He never went anywhere without a pencil and a pen. Difficulty eating, terror, and everybody with MND will understand this, terrible difficulty with bowel movements, which used to take up half our day. I think he had a little frontal lobe effect as well. His moods were up and down. He didn't want to tell anybody for a good couple of months, which was very difficult, and I had to respect that. But the fact that I couldn't share with the rest of the world what was going on was extremely difficult too. And then I one day convinced him that we had to let people know because we needed the support. Yeah. And then that was February through to June, July. He was still, you know, okay-ish. And he was still going to site. He was an architect and his last building was being built. And Abigail, who worked for us, used to pick him up and put him in the car and take him to site. The builders used to carry him around site, carrying him up the stairs. It was just beautiful. But it got to the stage also that he couldn't do that any longer either. And then he was a very stubborn person, my husband, and he wanted to continue to eat, but I had everything mashed or tiny but he bloody loved olives, and he had someone smuggle olives into the house one day when I wasn't there. And he had one, and it was a Friday, and he was choking, and that wasn't uncommon. I was forever whacking him and saving his life. But he was having a problem, and I whacked his back, and an olive came out. And I looked at him and said, "What the have you been doing?" "Oh, I don't know where that came from." But he had aspirated on the olive. So within 48 hours, he'd died.
I'm so sorry you went through all of that. It's heartbreaking. How do you keep going when you're nursing someone to death? When the rock, the person in your life is deteriorating like that, what do you do?
It's extremely difficult because your role becomes blurred from wife or husband to carer. And there are actually, I mean, when you're married, you care for your partner. That's all there is to it. But this was full-time care. So this is showering, dressing, toileting, putting to bed, feeding, NIV masks, medication all the time. And I read some of my notes. I took notes when I was going through. If I ever had a minute, I'd sit there. And some days I was absolutely heartbroken. And some days I was full of fury and resentment.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that I read those now. And I actually have shared those notes with some of my friends who are currently caring, because there's overwhelming guilt that you would feel like that. This person has no choice in the situation that they're going through, but you're very tired, very, very tired, physically, emotionally, spiritually exhausted. And I couldn't yell at that person because that person didn't choose to be in this situation. So,
but it's hugely frustrating. Yeah. How does a relationship cope with that? The emotional journey that the two of you go through?
It's a very good question. Unfortunately, we'd had practice because we lost a son when he was 21 to cancer. And so Robert and I, apparently our GP said to us 95% of couples will actually separate after the death of a child. But Robert and I became like this. We came very, very close. So we'd had the practice of discussing our son's illness and our son's death and planning his funeral and helping him with his will. So in a way, I knew what was coming. But our relationship changed in that Robert was very fearful of death, even though he was a big Catholic, and I could never understand that. And so he talked about his fear a lot. And then my frustration was, well, how can you be such a big fat Catholic and be so scared of death? But I wasn't in that. Yeah, I wasn't in that position. So the relationship, there's still the fundamentals there. So I was speaking with a friend lately, and she said every now and then she sees that glimpse in her husband's eye, which is, hey, I'm still here. We're still together. And we would get that too. And we would still laugh about stupid things and talk about the kids and the family and talk about things that we were sad we couldn't do anymore. You know, we acknowledged it. We didn't deny what was happening. But being the carer means that you kind of lose the role of partner.
Yeah, I can imagine. I love that you were able to go on the journey together, though. despite that change in the dynamic.
Yeah. It's
So,
important.
yeah. So one of the things I really admire about what I've learned from you is how you have, after Robert's passing and after having gone through this journey, really, it seems like purposed your life around helping other people in the MND community and other people going through this awfully horrible, undescribable experience. How did you get to that point once Robert passed, and dealing with that devastation and then turning it into something that is so kind and so community driven?
We, together as a couple, we volunteered at a palliative care hospital in Sydney.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah, so we did that. I did it for about 5 years. I think he did it for about 4 years. It was
Prior to
part of,
diagnosis, yeah, lovely.
but it was part of our mantra, and still is as a family, is give first. If you give first, if you don't think about yourself first, you'll be a better human being. After Louis, our son, died, I did a similar thing. I worked with Red Kite, who supports families and children going through cancer. And then when we went through this in Sydney, and to be frankly honest, we had it, because it was COVID, I suppose would be an excuse, but we had a really bad care journey. Our care needs were not met at all. And that's got nothing to do with Dom. That's got something to do with MND New South Wales. SOS. And I thought it was cruel, after speaking to people about the inconsistencies in care, that people didn't understand what was available to them. But the thing that is the worst is that when you're diagnosed, you are so alone, you're terrified, and you feel extremely vulnerable. And I became involved with Fight down here, and as a journey to that with MND Vic and MNDA. And I thought there has to be a way that we can bring all of the people around Australia into a community. Now, what's the easiest way we can do that? I can do that, a podcast, because you don't have to move anywhere. You don't have to be anywhere. You can sit and listen to that. You can be passive whilst you're doing it. But people aren't passive, it turns out. People are loving the engagement.
Yeah.
They're reaching out to me every single day I wake up. Yesterday I counted, I had 15 emails from people with MND who are reaching out through the podcast.
It's wonderful. They want that community.
Yeah, they want the
need this.
community.
Yeah.
And they're asking me, oh, Jane, could you introduce me to so-and-so? Bing. And people travel from one state to another to go and meet up with people. It's
Wonderful.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
And we all know the story about Was. Was called me, and well, we know the end of that story. Off he went and met the PM.
Conquered the world. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's about sitting in that feeling that we had when we were first diagnosed. And I always say we, because it's a family disease, and really realizing that a community of family needed to be built.
I think it's incredibly admirable. And I think, as I said, love and human connection is what makes the world go round.
Oh, absolutely. And I say regularly that it astonishes me every day that the people that I'm surrounded by, they know what's happening to them. Their families know what's happening to them. But the laughter and the love and the community and the selflessness is extraordinary. Now, I have bad days every now and then. We lost 2 people this week, and that's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. So I just take myself off for a bit of a stomp. But then we had another 2 people, 3 people coming in this week. So it's for the meantime, it's a never ending story. It won't be forever, but for the meantime it is.
bringing people together, but also looking at what we can do. I think it was in your interview with Dom that he talked about the fact that as many people in Australia die of MND as MS, but people with MS take a lot longer now because we know what to do.
Yeah.
As many people in New South Wales die of MND as they do on the roads, but we have huge amounts of policy and resources going into fatalities. We don't seem to have the priority in Australia to look at the causes, the reasons, the interventions, the care. What can we do to help people with MND? So that's certainly one of the things that I'm really keen to do in the role.
Yeah, I think as Dom says, we have got to stop calling it a rare disease because it's not a rare disease anymore. And how he described what happens after a car accident and the investigation into that. We don't know where MND comes from. It's an orphan, no mother, no father. So that's why Woz and Dom and the rest of us are so keen to understand where you live, where did you live, what did you do, what chemicals may have you ingested, all of those basic things, so that we can find out from ground level, why is this thing happening? Is it blue-green algae? Is it, there were two guys on one of the MND pages the other day who worked together for 30 years in, one was an air ambulance and one was air cop, I think. That can't be a coincidence, all those chemicals.
Look, bringing the data sets together and looking at the social, the familial, the geographic, the environmental causes, or at least trends, and so we can start doing some mapping is absolutely critical.
And that, MindOz will be amazing doing that. So if we can get that up and running properly, that'll be amazing.
For sure. And I think it's interesting, one of the things, we don't know exactly how many people in Australia have MND.
I mean,
we can analyse death data, but that's the best and most accurate way at the moment, which is it's woeful.
Too late, baby, because we can't look after people whom, and a lot of we have a private Facebook site for people with MND and their carers, and there's over 1,000 people on that now, and it's still surprising how many people are unaware that there is an MND association in their state.
Interesting.
Yeah, so everyone always says, oh, you've got to contact this person, you've got to contact this person. So there's quite a few gaps in the market as we go along from diagnosis to care. But that again is the community looking after the community. And people come on and say, I have a problem with this. And so people direct them to whom they should see. It's quite remarkable, that community.
Yeah, well, it's invaluable, and you learn more from the people that you have rapport with and you trust. I mean, one of the things that was a story highlighted to me is we have these state associations who have fabulous services, carer support, equipment, libraries, but making sure everyone's connected to what's available. That's the same as the ability to get people into the NDIS or to get sort of social help. Navigating these systems is incredibly complicated.
I gave up. I'm a well-educated, university-educated, English is my first language.
Professional, competent administrator.
All of that. And I gave up because it was too hard. I didn't have anyone helping me through it. But I said, I'd rather spend time with my husband than doing all of this. And I'm sure that happens to other people as well. It was too hard. And then the NDIS, we could really help them because we could save them a heck of a lot of money. The way they run their program at the moment, delivery is often way too late. So the waiting times could be 6 to 8 months. And that's, and by the time the wheelchair or the bathroom approval or whatever comes along, it's too late. But there's been a whole lot of money spent, that whole process. Wheelchairs are $25,000 each. And they get to the person who can't get out of bed anymore. Bathroom approvals, and that all the approvals have been gone through, things have been bought, the person has died. There's a massive waste of money going on.
What other observations do you have about people with MND in the community and other insights into what we collectively as a society should be doing?
Okay. In Victoria, people are very well educated about MND because of Neil Danaher. If you say MND, people say, oh, the footballer, oh, Neil. But it's quite parochial. So there needs to be far more education around the country as to what is MND. I was speaking to a woman yesterday and she asked me what I did, and I told her she'd never, this is in Victoria, she didn't know what MND was, never heard of it.
Is it awareness of MND? So my gut feel is we've got high awareness of the name MND, but not of the actual disease and what it does. So more detailed knowledge about the disease, the progression.
Both.
Okay.
Because there are still people, the majority of people do not know what MND is. And every time I speak with someone who has been diagnosed, or I speak with their family member, they said, I had no idea what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not until your family member or friend is diagnosed that you'll understand what it is. So I think we live in a bubble where everyone knows what MND is, but that's not reality. So, yeah, education of what is MND, that MND exists, and that what it actually is. And, you know, a lot of my people are having problems because you can't talk or you slur. They're not served in bars, they're not served in restaurants because people think they're drunk. And then there's all the usual problems with access to shops, access to supermarkets, access to restaurants. Robert and I, when we used to go for our walk every afternoon, he was in his motorised buggy. We used to have to go an extraordinarily long way because I had to go out there and map where we could go, because you need to be able to get down from the footpath and then back up the footpath again. So there are really simple things like that. One of our members is an architect and in Melbourne, and it takes him for hours now to get to work and back, because being able to get onto a tram, getting onto a bus can be extremely difficult. So these are things that, you know, once you've been diagnosed, you don't have a hell of a lot of time left. So you want to get out there and do what you can.
Yeah.
But often you can't do that because the access is not available.
Interesting. And to be honest, Victorian transport infrastructure is probably best in the country. So, okay, yeah. So as a community, we have to start prioritizing and investing in the common sense things. And it's not just people with MND. This is people with any sort of
any
neurological condition,
absolutely.
disability. Yeah, we have to
Yeah.
start doing things better.
Yeah, we do. And there's a lot of lip service to that, but I don't think that, you know, if you put yourself in a wheelchair and go out for a day and see where you can actually go and what you can get into, you get a little bit cranky.
Yeah.
The ACT is probably pretty good because it's the ACT, but the rest of the country is not as well served.
Okay. What about for carers and families and children? What do we do? You know, this is horrific, watching someone you love die of MND. How do we help those people?
Oh, it's really difficult. When you're a carer, you don't want to be away from your person too long, and your person never wants to be away from you.
Like a child with a disability or a child, full stop,
exactly.
really.
Correct. So hard with children. Communities are very good caring for the children. So families, extended families, school communities, care, from what I see, are amazing how they jump in and take the children to sport, take them to the parties, keep them diverted, keep them busy. As my children were older, I'm not sure. So, but it's something that we really should talk to families with smaller children. Caring for the carer is very hard because going back to that guilt. So if someone would say to me, you got to care for yourself, and I'd think, oh, when am I going to have fucking time?
How on earth? Self-care, me time, all of these things, when you, every moment's precious, but also every moment you needed. I don't know.
Yeah. smarter people than me can help with that. I used to go for a walk every day. I had to go for a walk every day. I, personally, I couldn't have massages and things like that because my brain is thinking, oh my God, I've got to be with him. I've got to be with him. What if he needs me? What if he needs me? So that's just me personally. But then again, I know some of my friends are exactly the same. Yeah, I think we should broaden that one out and ask the community. It's a really good question.
Yeah, and sometimes even it's probably just knowing that there are people there, knowing that there is other people in this situation. Sometimes that's enough. But yes, I think that's definitely something we should work on, because there's a lot of people who are doing an unbelievably huge caring load without support.
And you know what was amazing for me is when I would come home from somewhere and there was a pot of food on the front desk, front step. One of my girlfriends, she's a surgeon, she's a big human. I would turn up, or I would look out my front window and there she'd be raking up my garden or digging holes, or I'd say, do you want a cup of tea? She'd say, pretend I'm not here. My brother would come over and do the same. My neighbours would do the same. I'd look out the back window and someone was mowing my garden. So those kind of things where you don't actually have to ask. I had a really good idea last year, is that we have an app. And the app, I actually did a bit of research into this. I'll talk to you about it. But you have a community of your friends or whomever wants to help you, because everyone wants to help. And you put up the list of things that you want done that week. And people say, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. But you don't have to ring someone and say that. It's just the community saying, don't worry about me, press a button, I'm going to do that. Those kind of things would be extremely useful.
Fantastic. Yeah, okay. How do we so our state associations, as you said, they all do slightly different things, and healthcare services are based on state funding. You know, it is a complicated space.
It is.
How do we make sure the great things that they're doing, people know about and can access, some of the life-changing situations when, people can access a reasonable wheelchair, or they're loaned equipment they need, or some of the carer support groups? How can we connect the MND community even more?
I think a lot of it is done at the moment through social media.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody does social media, so that's a good way. We have to look out the box out of the square on that. The different MND from
Models.
different states need to share with each other what they're doing too. So when that's shared, then they can say, oh, hang on. I mean, I know South Australia is doing amazing things, because I was lucky enough to be at the complex care last year. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, why don't they do that everywhere? Queensland does some amazing things. Victoria does some amazing things, but they're not sharing that information with each other. So if that
Interestingly, they are increasingly, but that's it, like getting everyone's services up and everyone doing the best they can of what we're learning.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then,
just keep increasing.
Yeah. So it's more about cross pollination, and then getting it out to, the what am I on? The research collective, because then we have massive tentacles that can spread it out further and further.
It really goes down to community, doesn't it, and human connection.
It's always community and connection, always. Yeah.
Jane, one last question. What's next for you? What's in the short, medium and longer term for you?
It's a really good question. Got a busy year. I've been to Antarctica, as we all know, this year. But my son and his partner in the UK have announced that they're having a baby.
That changes lives. Babies just bring so much happiness and so much sleep deprivation.
Yeah, well, that's their problem, not mine. So
that'll be great. Oh, how long until you're a grandmother?
Well, I am already a grandma to
Okay.
Freddie. He lives in Sydney, and then this one is due in October, so I'm going to go and spend December with them.
Fabulous.
Not in their house, because I'm not that cruel. Friends are taking me to Byron Bay this year.
Brilliant.
We've got the Dannahurst Drive, which is always a blast. Okay, I'm coming to Canberra to see you
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
coming to the Parliamentary Friends of MND. That's this year done. And, you know, what I do every day is something to do with MND. I'm very passionate about it. I am.
Very generous with your time and energy, I must say. It's invaluable what you're doing.
Thank you. I do get a little over emotional as that meeting that you were on originally this week and had to leave. I got a little bit over emotional on that one. So I have to pull myself back a bit sometimes. But it's still for this year, MND. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, building community and what you've done is such an asset, and the intelligence that you're able to feed people like me and the associations in what we need to be doing, growing those connections within the community. I can't thank you enough, and I'm sure people with MND, you know, are even more grateful. Thank you for your time and energy and for sharing your story today.
Thank you.
I'm really sorry you had to go through that, but I've learned a lot, and I'm really grateful that you shared your story with us.
Yeah, my story is heartbreaking, but we're not alone. That's the thing, that we're surrounded by it everywhere.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to work to help people with MND and to extend quality of life and to work out what's going on with this disease.
I think I love you a little bit.
I think I love you too, Jen. And I can't wait to see you in person in Canberra. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you everyone for listening. And I hope you've enjoyed getting to know Jane Simpson, the fabulous Jane Simpson. And yes, we'll talk to all of you soon.
Thanks, lovely.
We'll talk soon. Bye, Jane.
Bye.